Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Daryl from Hitwise, and great webinar for you today. A few housekeeping items before we get started. First of all, feel free to ask any of your questions through the GoToWebinar control panel, and let us know if you have any technical difficulties. And then questions about the content we'll be addressing in a Q&A session right after the webinar talk track. Other items, we're also going to be recording this presentation. So after the presentation, you can expect to receive the slides as well as the on-demand version in your inbox. So today's webinar is called Amazon Analytics. And our speakers today are going to be John Feddo, Senior Analyst at Hitwise, and Jeff Chabin, SVP Group Director of Analytics and Insights at Spark Foundry. So I'm going to pass it over to John to get started. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Daryl, and thanks for joining us today, Jeff. We look forward to hearing from you. So I'll go through the agenda really quickly before we get started. So we'll start off by talking about what is the retailer black box and why are we talking about it today. Next, we're going to look at what we learned from this year's Prime Day, going through kind of top selling products and brands and other trends that we observed. Then also looking at, what did we uncover within the retailer black box of Amazon, going deeper into Amazon beyond just what we saw on Prime Day. And then wrapping up with kind of what are the tactics for the peak period, the peak holiday season ahead, because this is a lot of the stuff that we learned on Prime Day will really be influential in maximizing success for the holiday season. So we'll get started here, looking at what is the retailer black box and why are we talking about it right now. The retailer black box is something that we see, we hear from our clients all the time. And the reason is that, the e-commerce landscape has really created this dependency on brands and on retailer sites themselves to generate sales without, the ability to go directly to consumers. As a result, brands that have that blind spot when it comes to what's happening with their online brands performance. And that's what we call the retailer black box. And obviously the biggest black box that we are being asked about right now to look into is Amazon. For a brand's perspective, you really might not know how many of your customers are searching on sites like Amazon and other retailers, and which makes it difficult to, optimize and target, retailer traffic. You might also really not know how your products perform in the category when compared to your competitors, which makes it difficult to understand if you're actually performing really well or if there's an opportunity to grow. And equally for retailers themselves, the need to understand the best brands to compete online, they also have their blind spots as well. First of all, not knowing how your categories of products and brands stack up to the competition, namely Amazon. Again, for the one we're being asked about most frequently now, but others as well. And not knowing, where your products and brands have gaps versus the competition. So Amazon might be doing really well in a particular category. You may not be aware that there's an opportunity to grow there. And finally, leading to kind of merchandising decisions, you lack a lot of competitive intelligence, to inform your merchandising decision without that competitive insights into the retailer black box. So, really, why are we talking about this now? I mean, we've been talking about this with our clients for at least the past year or more. Amazon's ambitions are obviously really big and growing, and they're buying companies, at an unprecedented rate. We see, in the last year, or just a little over a year ago, technically, they acquired Whole Foods for $13.7 billion, giving them not only a play in the, more of the grocery and fresh products, but also giving them a really large retail bricks and mortar footprint. They've also acquired Body Labs, Blink, and Ring, which provides them with smart technology and AI for their home security. But that also ties into their own existing smart products and their services line, which is growing. And then finally, they've acquired PillPack just this last June, which really does speak to their intentions to grow and enter the pharmaceutical industry. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about how Publicis and Spark Foundry kind of view what Prime Day means for the industry.
Thanks, John. Yes, and so we've all seen the headlines, and this has become a critically important event for us to continue to pay attention to. So at Spark Foundry and at Publicis, we're always eyeing the competitive landscape, understanding what the consumer trends out there as well, and this is just a moment in time where we are seeing unprecedented consumer demand. I mean, the website itself crashed, and in addition to that, we're still seeing record-breaking sales, and so what that means is that consumers are tuned in a way that they haven't been before, and that's setting a new precedent for the rest of the retail landscape. What's also interesting as an observation is that how quickly this disruption has occurred. So if you think about, this is really just the 4th year of Prime Day. So within that short period of time, a new retail holiday, if you will, has been created. And what that means for the competitive set is that you're either going to jump in and continue to compete for that share of wallet during this time period, or be left behind. And we'll share some data today on what that looks like. What we've also done is notice what the advertising mix has been for Amazon Prime itself to support that day, what the creative has been looking like as it's being developed, and we're just seeing total category leadership and brand building potential here. Unlike a lot of other retailers that are competing for offers and percentage off discounts, Prime Day, Amazon really leaned in and didn't really mention much about specific offers or deals. It really was about owning and leading the event itself. And that advertising started before the 4th of July this year. So they're definitely getting ahead of that trend, starting to own that trend as we head into back to school season as well. So, for brands and companies that compete in these categories and in the space, and for retail in general, we have to pay attention to this disruption. We'll share with you today, some sales information and conversion rates around key categories, and the usual suspects as point of entry here is going to be consumer electronics. But that's really the point of entry. From there, it's all around routine and replenishment categories. Amazon has really taken quite a stance on private label and started to compete aggressively for share with its own brand. And then branching out into other categories as well. We'll talk a little bit about fashion and beauty and some interesting things that are happening in that space. But ultimately, it's an acknowledgement to just pause for a second and understand what's happening here, how the category is being disrupted overall, but how consumers are really responding in real time.
Thanks, Jeff. So one of the other things I think that will really help bring home the dominance of Amazon will be this first slide here, but it's also building to even more data. But looking at the top 50 retailers, those top 50 retailers account for about 73% of traffic to the Hitwise Retail 500 aggregation of retail sites. And among those sites, Amazon already accounts for now 44% of retail traffic over the past year, which is about, 4.8 times greater than second place Walmart here that has only 9.2%. We can see if we build on that, looking at just the number of transactions, total volume of transactions. Hitwise is already tracking kind of checkout pages on the top 50 retail sites, and looking at the total number of those transactions over the past year, Amazon is processing 76% of those. So about 3 in 4 retail transactions now are conducted on Amazon, really bringing home the pure dominance that Amazon has over the marketplace right now. Their share was actually even higher in July. It was 79% in July and 80% in January of this year. November was the lowest point for Amazon when it had, just 67% of the share, but that was really due to, all the competition that's coming in from peak week. So even with all the other retailers and competitions coming out, with maximum firepower, Amazon still held on to 67% of transactions shared during the month of November. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that, you know, Amazon, these are looking at the top 15 retailers by total number of transactions. But you can see here, even with Amazon's dominance in the transaction volume, they also dominate in terms of conversions, with about 6.6%, I think, of every visit to Amazon resulting in a purchase. And that's about 35% higher than that of any other of the top sites that we see. That's even like compared to Shutterfly, which is a standout all by itself, which has really strong conversion rates. But if you look compared to like Walmart's and Target's and other retailers here, you're seeing that they have conversion rates about a third almost or less of what we're seeing on Amazon. So Amazon's doing an excellent job of converting those visits into purchases. And one of the ways that they're doing that is obviously through getting people to sign up for Prime. Hitwise is also tracking the total number of new Prime memberships that people are picking up on Amazon every day and every month. We already, some estimates put the number of Prime households in around like the 40 to 50% range, and you know, wouldn't be surprised if that surpasses the 50% range, if not more. By the look at the trend that we've seen just this past November, we see on average Amazon's adding about 200,000 new Prime members per month, and since just in the first 6 months of 2018, they've added 1.2 million new Prime members just in the first 6 months of the year. December obviously will be another really key period. With last year, they had almost 500,000 new members for Prime during the month of December alone. I will actually talk about some of the Prime membership stuff that we saw over Prime Day, but I'm going to talk about that. I decided to move that to our Prime section specifically, but there's also some really interesting findings there. Now, the other interesting thing that I think is going on, and as we see all these Prime membership numbers growing and growing, is that the number of Prime exclusive buyers is also growing. So what we did look at was people who made a purchase from any of the top 50 retail sites that we're tracking, and then looking at the percentage of those people who are buying just from Amazon. So not buying from Walmart or any of the other 49 sites in our list. And during the holiday season, we saw about 38.5 million Americans were Amazon exclusive buyers, buying only from Amazon and no one else. And it was about 54% of those people who made at least one purchase from the top 50. Now, interestingly, if we look at just the month of July, that number went up to 47.3 million. And it's now up to about 70% of people who bought among the top 50 retailers. 70% of them are now just buying from Amazon. What's even more astounding is that, you know, we used to see a lot more cross shopping happening, even if people weren't necessarily, if these Amazon exclusive shoppers weren't necessarily buying from other retailers, they were at least visiting them and kind of doing some cross shopping. But those numbers are also down. So retailers are increasingly getting left out or not even being considered. If you look at like the numbers that we saw for cross shopping during the holiday season, for instance, 41% of that Amazon exclusive set was also still visiting Walmart.com. But in July, it dropped down to 33%. 28% of the Amazon exclusive set was visiting Target during the holiday season. That's down to 17%. And you can see similar trends for Best Buy, Apple, and a number of the other retailers in the top set. So Amazon's increasingly gaining wallet share, but they're also pushing others out even from the consideration set. So what does that mean? So retail obviously has had a challenging start to the year. The online channel is continuing to drive, you know, really the growth of the industry overall. There's a handful of retailers that dominate the online landscape, but really it's dominated almost, you know, most heavily by Amazon. Amazon's recent acquisition moves has shown that the giant has really ambitions to grow even beyond what we're seeing today and beyond probably what our expectations can even dream of. And this all really creates that blind spot in the dependency between brands and retailers, you know, when it comes to online performance, demonstrating the importance of having a good understanding of what's happening within Amazon. So we'll move on to the next section, which is really what did we learn during Prime Day? And I'll let Jeff really kick this off, kind of understanding, why Prime Day is so important.
Sure thing. And this is really all about the headlines. I'm sure you've seen the articles and the publications all touting the success this past July season. So we don't need to repeat those. I think the numbers in themselves are staggering. And so what's interesting is the theme behind the headlines that, traditionally this, I think, was an acquisition play for Amazon to bring new Prime members into its arsenal. What we're seeing over time is that strategy seems to be transitioning a little bit more to category share and category dominance as Amazon continues to pivot and break into new categories as well. And that's the data that we'll share with you. The overall headline is, as John said, this is really about setting a new precedent and a new expectation behind the numbers that you see here in the headlines.
Great. So now what we're going to start looking at now is really looking at just Prime Day performance year over year, and then looking at how Prime Day this year performed in general, from just looking at an Amazon perspective. If you look at the slide on your screen here right now, you can see that that Prime Day itself, July 17th, if we say Prime Day is the 17th this year, that was the single largest day of transactions that Amazon had over the last year. If you combine the two, even July 16th, which is kind of the first day of Prime Day, it even surpassed Black Friday last year, though it did fall after Cyber Monday. If you combine those 2 days, so the full kind of 48-hour, 36-hour Prime Day event, the total number of purchases surpassed Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And if you look at visits might have actually been down a little bit, but they were really within about 1% of the Black Friday and Cyber Monday totals. So really just showing how strong Prime Day is now Amazon's biggest day of the year, even bigger than Black Friday and Cyber Monday. If we look at Prime Day this year versus Prime Day last year, obviously Prime Day last year was a different day of the month, but we are still kind of lining those days up, and we see that while transactions on Prime Day this year, which is the 17th, were actually a little bit lower than the official Prime Day in 2017, you take those two numbers, those 2 dates in aggregate, and you combine them together, you can see that the total number of transactions processed by Amazon over those 2 days was 17.2 million, which is up 16% over the same 2-day period, Prime Day and the day before in 2017. And if you look at just the same period, Monday and Tuesday, the week prior, we see that kind of visits were up about 15% week over week, and transactions were up about 91%. Transactions were up 91% week over week. So really strong performance, even for a typical Monday or Tuesday, but even stronger performance than last year's Prime Day. And then as I mentioned before, I would talk about some of the Prime Day signups, which this was really interesting data when I looked at it. I had no expectation to see these numbers when I was looking at it. And in fact, I think that now that I see it on the screen here, the numbers are backwards for one thing. But we saw that the total number of new Prime memberships on Prime Day, which was the 16th and the 17th this year, was really about equal, if not a little bit lower than the same period, Monday and Tuesday the week prior. So we got about 12,900 or almost 13,000 new members signed up the week before Prime Day versus about 12,700 who signed up over the 2 Prime days, indicating that people were probably either more signing up in advance of Prime Day in anticipation instead of waiting until Prime Day itself. But we also probably, could attribute some of that decline into, some of the technical problems that Amazon had on Prime Day. Maybe some people had some second thoughts about signing up or had difficulty signing up. But the thing that I see that is wrong on this slide is that the conversion rates are actually flipped. The conversion rates on the week prior were actually higher than they were on Prime Day itself. So it's about 3.2% conversion rate of Prime Day memberships the week prior, and about 1.6% conversion rate for those memberships on Prime Day itself. So people were less motivated to sign up for a Prime membership on Prime Day this year. And like Jeff said, I think spoke at the beginning of this section. This also tells us that while Prime Day, used to be, 4 years ago when they started this event, was really to drive more Prime memberships. And now that Prime memberships have grown so significantly, Prime Day is really, this tells us that Prime Day is really kind of, a retention plan, and keeping those Prime members happy and coming back for more, as opposed to really using Prime Day to drive new signups. So now if we want to look at kind of what were the best selling products on Amazon on Prime Day, the 16th and the 17th combined, it's a really easy thing to answer. It's really Amazon's own products were doing the best job. In fact, 6 out of the 10 top purchases on Amazon were Amazon's own products. Fire Stick TV, they sold 677,000 through Amazon.com on those 2 days, with a conversion rate of about 23%. The next best-selling product was the Amazon Echo, the Echo Dot, the black version. The white version was also among the top 10, selling about 100,000. And the Kindle Paperwhite also was among the top 10. I'm going to switch to the next slide, which actually gets rid of some of the Amazon products, all the Amazon products, and looks at just the non-Amazon branded products here to see, which other products are really top. Obviously, we see a dominance of electronics products, even excluding Amazon's own brands from here. The Instant Pot, which has been a leader in bestsellers on Amazon consistently since at least this period last year, still doing really well, being the top non-Amazon branded seller during Prime Day. 23andMe, their DNA kit, they sold almost 100,000 on Prime Day. And this is another emerging category. We saw this during Black Friday and Cyber Monday last year, where these DNA kits are big sellers and offering big discounts on these peak sales days. The Life Straw was, I think, the only non-technology product, non-electronics product that was among the top 10. It's kind of like a camping thing, so probably not something we'll see showing up during the peak week this fall or this holiday season. But the rest of the products, again, we see a lot of micro SD cards. We see the TP-Link Smart Mini Plug. We saw even this Toshiba 50-inch 4K Ultra HD Smart LED TV. It's not just a regular LED TV. It's, of course, the Fire Edition. And then we saw iRobot, the Roomba 671, Bose Quiet Comfort 25, noise canceling headphones, along with another SanDisk product, rounding out the top 10 non-Amazon branded products. So if you want to take a stock of these products here, these are probably going to be among the best sellers for Black Friday and Cyber Monday ahead, as well as some of the related products in these same categories. I will say, we do see in Amazon what people are searching for internally as well, and they're still looking for, electronics, headphones, TVs, laptops, all kinds of electronics items. That's what they come to Prime Day for, are these electronic deals. But beyond, just the top selling products, I'll kind of go ahead and animate this so you can take a look at all the full data here. But beyond the individual line items, so the Fire TV Stick versus the Fire Cube, on Prime Day, Amazon sold over 850,000 Fire TV products. They sold over 600,000 Echo products. Interestingly, because when it comes to understanding consumer interest and consumer preferences, I went ahead and broke that down to say that 62% of the Echoes were of the charcoal fabric, 23% were for the heather fabric, heather gray, 13% were sandstone, and then there were a couple of limited edition kind of walnuts and other hardwood finishes that were getting some traction. The Fire tablet, which wasn't even among any of the top 10 best-selling individual items because it's spread out over so many different, variations of the kids and the 8-inch and the 7-inch and whatnot. Over Prime Day, they still sold over 500,000 tablets, with the 7 and 8 inches about equal and about 38-37% of share each. Instant Pot, I still can't believe that there are people out here that don't have an Instant Pot yet, but apparently there were at least 250,000 people who didn't yet have one, and they snatched one up on Prime Day. And then those micro SD cards, they offer those on really, really good sales, but those also go really well with your Fire tablets that you're buying, because you can add those in as kind of an add-on to those products. And then I also wanted to just mention Amazon gift cards in general, because it's become almost one of the top selling products overall on Amazon. They sold 229,000 gift cards on Prime Day this year. That's about 10 times more than they normally sell over a typical Monday and Tuesday. So people were coming to Amazon and buying gift cards as add-on products when they're coming to shop for on Prime Day. And $50 was the most common amount that we saw on Prime Day. So now, as I mentioned before, we can actually see what people are searching for on Amazon, and Amazon itself has become, a rival of Bing and Yahoo just as a search engine in terms of the total volume of searches that Hitwise is seeing every month. We're collecting about over 10 million, I think, different search variations on Amazon every month, and that number is obviously growing. One additional thing that we're collecting is when people are saying, if you type in laptops and you say, look in, and Amazon makes a recommendation to look in electronics or computers or other categories, we're able to also pick that up and segment that out for our clients. And so some of the data that I processed looking at Amazon's internal searches on Prime Day versus the week prior, and the total volume of searches obviously were up pretty significantly across the board. It was about 69% greater search volume on Prime Day than we saw the week prior. But then we looked at the share of, or total volume of searches, and in which were the fastest growers. Amazon devices themselves were the first, that category of people say look in Amazon devices. That category grew almost 10 times during Prime Day versus the week prior. Computer searches were also up, also double. Video games were up 128%. If you look, really electronics, appliances, video games, those were the categories that were the fastest growing in terms of internal search. So what people were intentionally looking for, which is a good indication of what they want to buy on those days. Interestingly, we saw, men's and women's shoes were up. Search volume was up 65% on Prime Day. So it's a kind of a foray into the fashion and apparel category for Amazon after they're done buying their electronics. They're looking at shoes. If you look at the bottom there, you see pets, automotive, and Amazon Fresh. So even in face of just kind of skyrocketing volume overall, we saw that these categories in terms of internal search actually lost volume. So that indicates that people really were not looking for these types of products. They didn't come to Amazon on Prime Day to buy stuff for their pets or for their cars and other industrial items or groceries on those days. Although the grocery category is heating up. Let me go to kind of the next slide. There we go. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, it's Jeff. Chavin, so just in response to this, we also want to acknowledge not just the consumer response, but the industry response too. So we don't have the official ad spend numbers back yet from all the key industry sources. That'll be released shortly. But we have looked even historically prior to this past Prime Day. We are seeing competitive spend just for the month of July growing to the tune of 30% even in the last 2 years. So retailers are jumping on this bandwagon in terms of creating a new expectation, again, a new normal, calling it Black Friday in July, offering promotional deals and discounts, and trying to take advantage of the fact that consumers are on their PCs and demand is being generated. So there's an opportunity to continue to seize and source some of that category volume as well. And so the advertising is just going along with that.
Yeah, and along those same lines, when we actually look at some of the top retailers, we actually saw among the top retailers that we were looking at earlier, transaction volumes were up in total 78% on Prime Day versus the week prior. Obviously, Amazon commanded about 86% of that share. We definitely saw, the the rising tide lifts all boats kind of phenomenon in general. There were some exceptions to the rule, but we saw, for instance, you see the Amazon numbers at the top, and obviously they did really, really well. It's their event. But Target actually stood out, even among those other top players who did pretty well for themselves. But Target saw on Prime Day itself, they saw visits increasing 133% week over week, and their purchase numbers increased 122%, and their conversion rates increased 67%. So that, obviously that's an example of a retailer leveraging Prime Day to gain market share or to, capitalize on this event that people have their wallets open. And obviously the industry took note. We saw quite a few headlines out there showing how Target really used the day well was this year. Home Depot, on the other hand, was not a retailer that ended up, benefiting from Prime Day. Instead, they did what we would have thought would happen to a lot of other retailers, in that they lost share. Their visits were down 8%, purchases were down 12%, and conversion rate also dropped. So it's just an example, right, Jeff, of retailers needing to decide if they want to sit on the sideline and suffer the consequences, or if they want to really get into the game and take advantage of this mass of people with their wallets open on Prime Day.
Yeah, that's right. And if we skip to the next slide, so we took a cross-section of retailers across the landscape, and we're just noticing transactions are up across the board, 78%. And so there's just a Me Too opportunity in there for other retailers, and we're seeing that play out, not just in ad sales or ad spend, but also in their transaction performance.
Right. So if we look at just kind of the so what for this Prime Day section, with some estimates put the total number of Prime members globally at about 100 million. These exclusive deals, didn't only help the sales of their own purchases, though those were the best sellers among the set, but they also helped drive a number of other brands to enjoy really strong sales volume, including those DNA kits, the Instant Pot, SD cards, and other types of electronics, especially. We also saw obviously other retailers like Target and others jumping on the bandwagon and seeing, at least a momentary uplift in sales. As a result, it's a great opportunity to counter program and get some share of wallet on these peak days and in preparation for Cyber Week ahead, kind of a way to get your feet wet and see what's going to happen as we head into the holiday season. So the next is really, we're going to dive into the black box of Amazon. So not just looking at total number of transactions, but and kind of the high level stuff that we saw on Prime Day, but really looking deeper and aggregating some of the data to tell a bigger story. Hitwise is delivering this type of data as part of our Amazon Retail Analytics product that Spark is a subscriber to, and why we kind of asked them to join our presentation today. But what we do is we take all of the data that we're seeing on Amazon, we're seeing the sales data, the total product page visits, and we're aggregating that up together, and also putting, matching that up to product names and brands and categories and whatnot to understand really what are the best selling categories. And this is like the share of transactions in total between November 2017 and June 2018. But this data goes back to November 2017. So we're almost got a whole year of data under our belts now. In terms of the best-selling category, books and Audible still is number one, although that does include kind of some free downloads. So I would say, it's not as important as the kind of the pie chart would indicate, but really the home and garden tools and the electronics, computers, and office category are really the two that are more dominant, I would say, in terms of actual paid purchases. Beauty and health is also kind of among the strongest. Toys, food, movies, and those are all kind of with less than 10% of transaction share. And when I say transaction, just to kind of explain what I mean by that is not a dollar amount. That is actually how many times a product in any of these categories was seen in a purchase confirmation page that Hitwise picks up. So these are number of purchases, not dollars of purchases, just to clarify that. If we take a look at that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of these purchases, these categories that fall, very low. But if we look at the categorization of sales, sales by category over month by month, we see obviously a really strong spike in purchases in the month of December for virtually every category. There are a few that are relatively flat, like the automotive industry, for example. And I think the food category is also relatively flat, but we see very strong, spikes in December. We also are seeing kind of the home and garden sales. Obviously, those have been increasing since March when the weather has warmed up, although they've kind of started to slow down just a little bit in June and probably will continue in July. If we get rid of those like top 3 categories on this chart to like just see deeper below the, into the lower levels here, we also see very similar trends here, but like the home category, sports and outdoor sales have also been heating up since the start of spring, and they're now at their highest levels since Christmas. Auto and industrial sales, they've been trending slightly up over the past few months. Also, the apparel category, which is I think one that people should keep their eye on, it's trending upward. This is one of those categories that I know that Amazon is going to be making a really strong push into to get people to move beyond. Once they've bought their Echoes and whatnot, they're really trying to be pushing their apparel products, and they've got them already buying like socks and underwear and t-shirts and whatnot, but they're going to be moving into more traditional fashion products to drive that. Interestingly, I think if we see the food and grocery sales are actually a little bit on the decline on Amazon, which I think is interesting given their acquisition of Whole Foods. But we've definitely seen the higher point in January, but we've seen consistently lower volume of sales of food and grocery items since then, which is something we'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Now, if we also look just at conversion rates, because we're able to look at the total number of page views, but we're also able to see the purchase pages, so we can calculate a conversion rate by category, by brand, and by product. And here you're looking at the conversion rates for all those same categories on average between November and June 2018. Like credit and payment products, which is where the gift cards lie, those have the highest conversion rate. It's about 26 or 27% of page views resulting in a purchase. Books and Audible also having really strong numbers. Food and grocery. Part of that is that you can actually buy some of these products without ever having visited the product page itself. For instance, if you buy bananas on Amazon, you don't visit a banana product page, you just buy bananas. Same thing, you can download a book without visiting a book page. But we also see much lower conversion rates for most of the other categories in the 5% or below range, with really beauty and health and toys and kids being among the best sellers outside of those categories where you can, you can pretty easily buy things without visiting product pages. So we look at the average conversion rates, just an aggregate overall trending between November and June. We see pretty steady conversion rates that we saw from before, around the 6 to 7% conversion rate. But in the month of December, conversion rates were about 17% higher than average. So obviously, as people are doing kind of their final Christmas gift buying, the conversion rates are going up. And again, part of that is also due to a surge in gift cards during the month of December. If we look at those other categories, trending their conversion rates month over month, we see the credit cards and gift options having the biggest spike in the month of December. But they also are seeing steadily rising conversion rates since I think March or so. We also have the services category, which is growing, seeing their, you can barely see it here, but I can tell you that the services conversion rate is growing. And this is the category in which Amazon is offering to set up your smart home or even do home cleaning or office cleaning. This is, as people kind of learn about these options, they're converting at higher rates. And sports and outdoor conversions have also been rising as the warmer weather arrives. If we want, we also can take a look at kind of what are the leading brands within each of these categories that we've been talking about. So here we see the home and garden category. I'll just point out early before, finishing this build, but Amazon's own products, it won't be a surprise, they're among the top 3 brands for most of these categories. But Home and Garden, Amazon Basics is the top selling brand with 1.6% of the category share. Electronics, Amazon Basics is also there with a 5.1% share, and Amazon itself, like with the kind of the electronics having 3.1% share, ahead of Samsung, which is the only non-Amazon brand there with 2.4%. Now, we have health, beauty, and home. It's kind of, we aggregate them all together, but they have very different products. So I kind of looked at them separately. So health products, Now Foods is really dominating there. Optimum Nutrition coming in second with Nature Made, but we'll keep an eye out here because as we saw, Amazon's getting into the vitamin and supplements business. Beauty, Neutrogena is leading here and actually showing a nice growth in sales that I've been seeing in the other data that I've been looking at. But Gillette and Philips Norelco shaving products kind of being the other 2 products in the beauty space. Household, Amazon Basics is really dominating there. And this is where Amazon puts their battery products in the household category, but Amazon Basics, that's pretty much exclusively batteries. Bounty is kind of the only other non-battery products among the top 3. And we see sports and outdoor, it's the first category where Amazon doesn't really own any of the top 3 best-selling brands there. These are traditional outdoor and sports category, sports brands. Food and grocery, 2 of the top 3 are Amazon, just being their produce aisle, and then 365 Everyday. Toys, kids, and baby. We see Funko does really well on Amazon throughout the year. Lego is doing pretty well, and Melissa and Doug being the 3rd brand. So again, no Amazon product in the toy, kid, and baby category, nor in the automotive category. We see Camco, Chemical Guys, and I'm not sure, Meguiar's. These are kind of traditional kind of garage, industrial types of products. And then clothing, shoes, and accessories. As I mentioned before, underwear, socks, t-shirts are doing really well. Hanes and Fruit of the Loom being the 2 best-selling brands there, but Amazon's getting into the game with their essentials lines of t-shirts and exercise apparel. And if we look at the movies, music, and games category, it's really Nintendo is dominating there with their Nintendo Switch, the console, and the brand. Microsoft there with Xbox, and Bethesda is also the maker of a number of best-selling games. If we look, we'll kind of build this one out so you can take a look, but if you'll have some of these slides to look at in tomorrow sometime, but you can see the individual best-selling products within each category to give you an idea of, not just which brands, because sometimes the best-selling product within a category is not even one of the top-selling brands. But you can see here, if we look through it in the household category, again, it's Amazon AA batteries and Amazon AAA batteries are the 2 best-selling products in that category, followed by Bounty paper towels. Obviously, we're in the summer season, so insecticide and insect repellent is trending very well right now. Bananas, organic and regular, are among the best-selling food and grocery products always. Toys, kids, these are going to be a little bit seasonal here, but we did see LOL Surprise make it into the top 3. It's going to be a strong player in the holiday season, especially now that Toys R Us is out of the picture. I think the toy category is only going to grow with the holiday season ahead. And even if we didn't see any Amazon products, the Amazon brand among the top 3 for automotive, we do see some of these microfiber cleaning cloth as one of the top 3 best-selling individual products in the automotive and industrial space. And then back to clothing and accessories, even though Hanes and Fruit of the Loom were the 2 best brands, Amazon's own 2-pack of men's perforated shorts is the best seller in the month of June. And then we see some of the top-selling games here. So we look, as I mentioned before, we see also internal searches for all of the different categories. And this search for the clothing category itself was, I think, interesting, as we saw Hanes, Fruit of the Loom were dominating brands in that category. And socks is definitely among the top searched for item in this category. But you see a lot of footwear searches on Amazon in this category, but we also see things like dress for women, women's tops, dresses, summer dresses. I think there's an opportunity. There's a lot of swimwear in here as well, but I think there's an opportunity to really move beyond kind of the essentials products or kind of the replenishment socks and underwear. As people, there's obviously a strong demand for it, and I think Amazon's wardrobe offering is really going to help them make people consider Amazon as a destination for more apparel and fashion products. And then if we look at the beauty category, we saw that Neutrogena was, the best-selling one. L'Oreal is also a top seller for beauty products outside of the shaving category, but we don't see any branded searches really here in the beauty category. People are looking for the types of products like sunscreen or makeup brushes or electronic toothbrushes, or they're looking for key ingredients like jojoba oil or tea tree oil or castor oil, witch hazel. And that's really tells us that there's an opportunity for brands, even unknown brands, to really play in this space, because if you have an unknown brand that, has, jojoba oil in it, they can quickly rise to the top sellers if they're competitive on price. And also if they get into some of the deals of the day categories there consistently, can really drive a brand. But the other thing that Hitwise is working on right now is to roll out our product in the next few months here that will link these search terms to the product pages that they're viewing afterwards, and also identifying which the share that each brand and product is paying for versus receiving organically. And this is something obviously our clients are keenly interested in receiving, because they want to understand who's bidding against some of their top keywords in their category, to understand where there's a risk or where there's an opportunity to grow there. So stay tuned for that information. If you want to learn more, reach out to your client team, because they can definitely give you an update there. So what here? So obviously we've shown a few examples of some of the data that we see, within Amazon from a competitive set. But in the end, this will help you really drive, I think, brands and retailers alike drive e-commerce strategy. The main point is to turn these insights into more tactical actions, and that's what we're going to go through. And then final section here to look at final tactics for really identifying what can you do with this data now to optimize success for the holiday season ahead. So kind of, Jeff, feel free to kind of jump in here, because we kind of went through these together. But for brands, we separated this from brands and retailers, but by knowing how consumers are really searching for things in their category on Amazon and other retailers, brands will be able to, one, understand, I think, consumer intent, right? Because what people are searching for is what they want. It's what they want to buy. But also help people optimize product pages to gain visibility, get them in front of people, and where they can be purchased. By knowing how consumers are selecting the products from search, what are they actually clicking on? That's again part of what we're looking at here in our next rollout of products for our Amazon and retail suite, is helping brands direct their sponsored ads for the right search spread for the right search terms. Next is by knowing how your products and your competitors convert. Obviously, we saw some pretty different conversion rates for different types of products, and specifically we talked about the conversion rates for Prime memberships, but we saw conversion rates on previous slides for a lot of the different top best sellers here. But by knowing how your products and your competitors are converting, you can identify ways to promote your high converting products on the right retailers, and also I think defend market share from competitors.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add, John, as well to this is taking these insights in terms of what people are searching for, what are some of the higher converting products and brands, doesn't just help to inform your e-commerce strategy, it helps to inform where consumers are migrating from offline brick and mortar to online as well. So consumer electronics and replenishment, I think we've seen from this data set, are no-brainers, but from there, consider that Amazon will continue to branch out into other segments and categories. So it's important to just have your eye on if consumers are not buying batteries at your local drugstore anymore, they're buying on Amazon, you're going to see that trend in your offline sales over time start to erode.
Right, and that's another way to kind of use that internal search to say, where are we seeing growth in internal search categories or even by specific keywords, because that's going to tell us where consumers, mood and mindset is in terms of, how interested or how feasible do they think it is for them to buy things like, women's dresses or summer dresses online. I'm sure, we saw very low numbers in these search terms in the past, but obviously now they're up into several variations of it, or up into the top 20 on Amazon. So we know that there's consumer interest and intent to buy dresses on Amazon, and being able to, and that might precede a potential erosion of in-store sales for those types of products and categories. I think the final thing for brands is, I think, knowing which products are trending in your category. This is something that really identifies where you have a gap or where you might have an opportunity in your product range. We talked to a few other clients about this. If you see that there is a trending search term for a particular type of pharmaceutical product or supplement on Amazon, and you have that product, that's a great opportunity. It tells you that there's a demand for it, so you can really go out there with and inform your search campaign and display campaigns to make sure people are aware of the fact that you're offering this product or any of these other trending products. I think, Jeff, you said, also understanding how Amazon reduces barriers to entry for e-commerce overall, right?
Yeah, I think we should just take notes on what they're doing properly, as well as brands and retailers consider how to build their own e-commerce businesses. Reducing those barriers to entry in terms of what it takes to convert category sales online is something to keep in mind. So free shipping, of course, but in addition to that, all the other offers being offered and all the other benefits associated with add-on services that Amazon is providing is what's really helping them win.
So now we're going to just pivot to kind of the key takeaways for retailers. So for retailers, the first thing we want to talk about is, by knowing, how consumers search and view products on Amazon and other competitors, they'll be able to obviously address gaps in consumer demand on their own site or even in store, and understand Amazon's own strategy. I think I'll address the first one here, but just by seeing if there is something that people are searching for on Amazon and you don't have that product, or you don't, you're kind of short on it, you're not seeing some of the same activities on your site, it's a great way for you to understand, hey, I need to be carrying more of this product. I think Jeff and I were speaking before about like Amazon's own strategy. Maybe I'll let you kind of pick that up, Jeff.
Yeah, and I think this is exactly how we're using this data as well with a lot of our client partners, is just understanding, where is the competition really happening? Because if you read the headlines and you follow them off a cliff, you would think it's all about, again, consumer electronics and subscription services, and we're finding that to be less and less the case. So understanding their strategy and the products and categories from which they're competing is going to be critical for retailers.
Great. The next thing we want to say is like how your like-for-like products can perform on competitors. You'll be able to push promotions to win traffic from competitors. So if you see, the Instant Pot, for instance, doing really well, or another similar type of product that you also carry, suddenly doing really well on Amazon, or another retailer that we might set up tracking for you on, another way for you to really see that there's a demand, and maybe it's, if you have a very similar product, maybe it's a promotional issue that where you're not selling as many, you're not seeing the same surge, or maybe it's a pricing issue. So you can inform your product team to see like what opportunities can they take to increase sales for something that is trending on Amazon or another competitor. And then next is what products are trending on competitors' sites. So again, it's kind of along the same line of what we talked about before, but address gaps in your product range. If you see, I think we saw this with the fidget spinner with some of our clients. We saw a lot of searches for fidget spinner, and then maybe they didn't actually carry fidget spinners. And unfortunately for all the rest of us, now everyone carries fidget spinners. But there was a moment there in the past where companies were able to use this type of data to see, hey, I don't have this product. I need to talk to my merchandising team and get out there and make sure that we source that and have the ability to take, to sell the same product that people are going elsewhere for.
That's right. And it's almost just an acknowledgement of, flashback 10 years to the club and warehouse retailer days, where a lot of that shopping trip was about the treasure hunt as well, finding a new unexpected product bundle that you couldn't get anywhere else. It was exclusive to club, was very much how that channel grew and developed and what consumers were responding to. You're going to see that happening here in the e-commerce space as well.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, I think, the Amazon reducing the barriers or for entry into the e-commerce space in general. So some of these smaller brands that might not be able to get into, physical retail stores can sell directly on Amazon. And if they've got a product that's trending, like we're seeing like these charcoal masks, for instance, really doing really well, they can sell a ton of those products quickly on Amazon before a retailer can get those into their stores to sell them directly. And then next we say, like, what brands are rising on competitor sites. Again, that'll help help retailers make, more strategic partnerships with the best brands, not necessarily the biggest ones, but understanding, hey, you've got a brand that's really kind of caught fire on Amazon or one of my competitor sites. What can I do to, shore up my relationship with this brand?
That's right. If you can't beat them, join them. So I think, a lot of this is about not just category share, competing for share overall, but just really paying attention and going beyond the headlines to understand what exactly consumers are responding to, what is the merchandising that is resonating the most, and where we see the impact, not just in the immediate short term, but for the long term.
All right. So let me just turn it back over to Daryl. I know we have maybe just a couple minutes, so maybe not a lot of time for questions, but Daryl, I don't know if there's any questions you wanted to try to squeeze in before we kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do two sort of clarification questions first that I saw come in. Is the data presented US based only? Or are there other countries as well?
Yeah, sorry. This data that we focus on today is US only. Our colleagues in the UK actually just last week hosted a similar webinar where they looked at the data coming out of our UK product. So we offer these insights for the US and the UK currently.
Okay, good to know, and that's available on our website as well. There was another clarification question for the stats for new Prime memberships. Was that measured in thousands or millions?
The new Prime memberships was not thousands or millions. That was actually just the actual number. It was about 13,000 new members were signing up over the 2 days of Prime Day and the week before Prime Day. So those were actual numbers, not in thousands or millions.
Got it. Great. And then this one, some of this we may have to answer online, but what tools are there to provide deeper data into Amazon? For example, being able to track ASINs becoming ineligible, campaign performance by ASIN, which I believe is Amazon serial.
So we have, we can probably address it more specifically, but I'll speak at a high level, quickly here. But Hitwise sees, we see internal search on Amazon, so everything that people are searching for, and then the product that they're clicking on afterwards. We also see by ASIN, which is Amazon's kind of product number, product code. We see the page views, that the pages that they're viewing. that are being viewed. And we also, because Amazon is relatively unique in the space, and they put the async code in the checkout page. So we are able to pick that up as well. So we see when an async code appears in the purchase confirmation page, and we see where it appears in the product page views, so we can do a correlation between page views and purchases. But we're also working on linking that internal search data to those page views and purchases. So that's where we're kind of trying to bridge the gap right now.
Great, great. And then I think there are actually a number of other ones, but we're out of time. So I'm going to make sure that the team reaches out to everyone individually with responses to your answers. Thanks so much, and sorry that we couldn't get to all of them today. I ran a little bit over, but I think we should wrap it up. So thanks so much, Jeff and John, for your time today and for the great insights. And if anyone has any further questions, feel free to contact the email address displayed here. And thanks so much, everyone, for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jeff.
Take care. Bye-bye.